My name is Øyvind Solberg. I'm the product manager for internal systems. And since this is the first time I'm speaking as expand role, I'm going to quickly introduce myself. I started working just 2 years ago, which is not a very long time in SuperOffice R&D. I think the average in my team is about 15 or 20 years. So I got some catching up to do there. But I have some experience earlier with SuperOffice. I started in Mandatum in the year 2000 with Atle and Arild, which some of you may know. And I was planning to ask how many of you are developers or writing any scripts, CRM scripts or .NET or...
No scripts.
Yes. So yes, and I'm a programmer, and and Jens is a programmer also, and I think it's a very good time to be a programmer. And the reason for that, what I'm thinking about that, is that it happens to be that each 5 years the number of developers in the world are doubling. I'm not sure if you know that. It has been like that since the 1960s. And if you think about that, that's really an explosion, and it's expected to double each 5 years for at least another decades. After a couple of decades, that will likely flatten out. And why do we have this explosion in system programmers? The reason is that the world is being digitized and automized. And that is also what we are doing in SuperOffice. We are automizing, as I will show you here. I'm just going like this. And why do we automate in SuperOffice? We automate our internal systems or processes for many reasons. For scalability, we need to be able to scale in order to grow and to handle more customers. We need to be able to double our amount of customers without having to double the amount of employees. And we need to increase our productivity so we can focus on what we do best instead of doing manual, repetitive processes that can be automated. And we need to enable tailored, targeted, and precise customer communication. And self-service is an important area also for automation. We need to improve that, and we also have community, as you have seen, and we have our special customer support site. So this talk is about our internal systems and what they are, why we built them, how to communicate, and how they use our APIs and extension possibilities. So I will show you how we have automated the business processes and the software and processes. And hopefully you will have a better understanding after this session about what these internal systems do. Have any of you seen this before? Guttorm has showed this a couple of times before. I'm not sure if he showed it this year, but he showed it last year. This gives an image about our internal systems and how many of them there are. And these are even not all of the systems. We could probably double the amount of that. And imagine starting drawing lines between all of this. And this, of course, we have seen the SuperOffice 2020 mission, or 2020 vision, in context of the internal systems and automation. This is about how we use our own products and APIs as a technology for automating our CRM processes, and with that we can automate the internal repetitive manual tasks we do in SuperOffice. So I want to present to you some of the core internal systems we have. Of course, we have our SuperOffice installation, which we define as an internal system. We have service, which I know it's kind of the same thing, but it's quite highly customized, so we like to talk about it as a separate thing. We often, if you have heard the words Mayday, we often talk about our service and our front-end support site as Mayday. And our SuperOffice installation, we even have a name for that. We call it 1DB. It's a story behind of that. And we have SuperLicense, which is a customized SuperOffice sales and marketing system. This is our licensing system. And if any of you are a partner, you may have heard about it. And we have SuperQuote, an order manager. SuperQuote is our quote connector. That's what's enabling us to interact with our ERP system. When you hear about SuperQuote in SuperOffice, you often it's including order manager. Yes, and we got a few more systems, of course. We have our .com site, our community, as you know pretty well. We have something called success programs, which is tailored email tracks that follows up onboarding customers and migrated customers. That's completely written in CRM scripts using Excel tables and reply templates. And we have the Operations Center and App Store, which is Jens' area. Important part of the online platform. Yeah. Okay, so I am going to show you a live demo of how we place an order and create a new online installation from the sell side. But before that, I'm going to show you how it were previously. I don't know, do any of you remember this? None of you remember it? It's the SuperOffice registration cards that were in use up to 2001. In 2001 we got KeyCode, which were the predecessor for SuperLicense, which were our first digital database for licensing registration. And so that was in 2001. However, even if we got our own licensing system, things were still quite manual. So we had a process called SuperOffice Express Order back then, which describes the sales and order process a salesman has had to follow if he should sell a system, and if the customer really had not so much time. And the process went like this. The salesman received the customer order and created the sales order in SuperOffice. He then printed out the order, and he then walked to the administration, and together with the administration they walked over to the storage and picked up the box, and then they went over to support with a package and an order confirmation. Then they registered the installation in KeyCode, and support printed out the KeyCode and gave this to the salesman, and then the salesman faxed it over to the customer, which then could install the system. So this actually was SuperOffice Express Order sale process. And today this is not exactly how we do it. Do you think this is? Do you think we do it a bit quicker today? We hope so. That's good. We have superquote. That's an important component here, as I will show you. And let's have a look at it. So right now I'm gonna do a live demo, and the best thing is to jump out of PowerPoint, isn't it? Like this. Okay, so what we have here is SuperOffice in our testing environment. I'm not gonna do a new installation in the production environment, but this is a complete copy of our production environment. I'm gonna talk a bit more about that later on. So we have this customer. It's a prospect that really wants SuperOffice. So let's see how quickly we can sell them SuperOffice. So we are going to sale and adding a new sale on this customer, and let's call it 25 users online, something like that. I'm not the salesman, that's always Ime Hansen, and I'm gonna set the sale type to new installation. Have to do that, and we need a contact, and I'll do save, and I'm gonna create a new quote and select the ERP connection, which here for us represents our subsidiaries. So I'm gonna be selecting SuperOffice Norway, and what happens now is that quote opens, and our custom SuperOffice quote connector is being loaded in the background, like that. And I'm quickly gonna add some users, like 10 sale, and I'm gonna do the, let's add 10 sale user online. And they really love, they also have a service desk, so they want service users. Adding 15 of those, going save. Like that, we have 25 users. Sorry, one of those. We have 16 users. That's not important. The next thing I have to do before I provision a new on-site installation, online installation, sorry, is to go to this provisioning panel. It's a web panel, custom web panel we have added, where we have to provide some information about the online site that's being provisioned. Yeah, it's 8.1, not many isn't that yet, and at least one user must be an administrator. So Terje Johnson is going to be an administrator. I'm saving that, and then hopefully we are ready for placing the order. And let's see if we are ready for that. Right now SuperOffice runs lots of rules, checking if everything is ready. And it's not ready. We actually are missing a license agreement. Of course we have to have the signed license agreement from the user before being allowed to continue. So I'm going to add that. Okay, I'm just going to add this. This is the customer scanned license agreement, where he has signed the order. I'm going to reopen the quote and then go place order. hopefully this will work well. And what happens now is a series, many steps that is being performed in the background. I'm going to show you that. Among other things, SuperQuote now is communicating with the system called Order Manager, which creates the installation and talks to the online environment. Now, as you can see, this is sold. I'm closing this. So right now the online environment is provisioning a new site. If I go back to the company and check out requests, we can see that the online environment has reported that the provisioning for this customer has started, and in a minute or two it's gonna come a new request and new message saying that the provision is completed, and this request status will change to closed. Right. Okay, and we are gonna check out Operations Center later on to see what's happened in the online environment. So let's have a look at what happened in the background. I'm going to go through all of the steps and all of the systems, and I have divided into 3 areas: quote to cash, online provisioning, and online migration. Quote to cash, I can just quickly say what that is. It's not a SuperOffice specific term. It's a established information technology term for describing all of the systems and automations that is taking place from the customer has ordered a system until we have the cash in the bank. That's quote to cash. So let's have a look at what happened. It started with SuperOffice. We created a sale and a quote. Super quote were loaded. When we placed the order, SuperQuote politely asked Order Manager to place an order. Order Manager then, first, by using NetServer to SuperLicense, creates a new installation in our licensing system. It then places the order in SAP, our ERP system. It then sent a provisioning request to the online environment, and then if this were a on-site installation, it would issue a license certificate. And finally, it by using a server updated a set of UDE fields in our SuperOffice installation. Right. Okay. So when all of this had happened, the new order is in SAP. The customer hasn't gotten any invoice yet. So in order to also automate that, we have created a automated integration with our finance provider, that's Arvato, which automatically sends invoices from SAP to Arvato, which then bills the customer. The invoice gets back to SAP, and we have a separate system that synchronizes SAP and SuperLicense. It's called InvoiceSync. And with all of this automation, in SuperLicense, we have the complete truth about all of our customers and all of their installations and all of their invoices, and we know if they are paid or not. If they unfortunately hasn't paid, we have this system called online random termination, which automatically sends out a series of emails to the customers, and finally terminates the installation if that should be the case. Okay, so kind of obvious why we have created our quote connector and order manager, and the reason, of course, is that we have automated lots of manual steps. A few years back, we had to manually create the installation of SuperOffice. We had to create the order in SAP, etc., etc. Now all of this automatically happens by simply placing the order in quote. So let's have a quick look at how we have used our extension possibilities. So SuperQuote, that's our ERP connector. And so what is a SuperOffice quote connector? I am not sure if any of you have ever created one, but that's basically an assembly you create, and you import SuperOffice plugins library, and you create a class and inherit a specific base class, and then you override any of the overridable methods you want to add or change or remove functionality from the standard quote connector. And I have a screenshot of our web.config. This is what you have to do to use a custom quote connector. See the second line there points to the assembly in your web.config, and in your sales and marketing bin folder you place the assembly. That's basically what you have to do. And I'll show you how we have implemented this. So this is basically our SuperQuote quote connector class. It's called SuperQuote connector, and it inherits this quote connector extender, which you can find in the plugins library. And you can override any methods you want. For instance, we have overridden on after save quote, where we apply a set of rules for validating the composition of products. We have lots of rules behind that. You can't just pick anything you want and put them together. And you of course have before and after send quote. You have before and after place order, which you uses. On after send order, we do all of the integration with all of these other systems. Right. Going back to this slide again, let's have a look at order manager. Let's open it up and see what happens when we actually place that order. So the sequence, as you remember, is it created an installation in SuperOffice, placed the order, communicated with the online, created a license certificate, and updated the SuperOffice CRM. Now, if any of this fails, it will automatically roll back the previously successful steps. This because this must happen in a atomic operation. It's either all or nothing. So these objects we call commitables. They are kind of the good old command pattern, as some of you may know. Not fully, but they are kind of. And this atomic operation follows what we call compensating transaction pattern. That is describes a set of steps that is occurred, and if anyone fails, the previously steps that successfully committed is being rolled back, except the one that failed, because that one you don't know what stage you were in. Back to the slide again. And how do we communicate with our SuperOffice service? We of course use our CS SOAP API. We also have some system that sends mail to service, where we have CRM scripts that processes that mail afterwards as a filter. Mostly we are using the SOAP API, like the environment. They communicate with the SuperOffice service using the SOAP API and the ticket endpoint. And as we saw earlier, we are executing CRM scripts through the SOAP API. Have any of you used the SOAP API to execute some CRM scripts? No. We are passing in variables, both simple and complex JSON string variables. JSON is something that we have seen we have good support for in customer service. And I'm going to show you how we have implemented this. So this class called Mayday Service basically is an abstraction around the ticket service. We have this method called execute script, which gets hold of the ticket service endpoint and calls execute script on it. You could do that directly from other places in your code, but doing it this way, and more importantly, having a specific interface using the interface segregation principle makes it really easy to write unit tests, for example, and simply mocking out all of this functionality instead of having your unit tests go off and call customer service. Then you don't have unit test, you have an integration test. Okay, and how do we communicate with SuperOffice from SuperQuote and Automator? We of course use NetServer, and we use entities for this. We are not using agents or services. The Automator talks directly to the SuperOffice database through the entities, like this. Okay, so this layout you can see here it's not implementation. It's not a network implementation diagram. It's a data flow diagram. SuperQuote, of course, lives basically inside of SuperOffice. It's hosted in SuperOffice. So I have one of the spiders, as Tony calls it. It's not that spiderish as your spiders. But basically, this is how the different components talk to each other. SuperQuote, that's the quote. That's a quote connector DLL, so it's hosted by the SuperOffice web server. Basically. Okay, so let's have a look at the next area, that is SuperOffice online provisioning. Let's see how this looks like from Automator. These steps you recognize. What's different is that seen from Automator, we communicate with the online environment through a gateway. And behind all of that is another big universe. So what happens when SuperQuote has sent a provisioning request is a series of provisioning steps. And when the site is up and running, the online environment sends out login emails. It communicates back to SuperOffice service through the SOAP API, creates tickets and license certificates, etc. This is far from the whole truth. There is a lot of communication from the online environment back to SuperOffice service. we kind of, from the internal systems point of view, we kind of look at the online environment as a thing we communicate to through a gateway. So, should we have a closer look at the online environment?
Yes, my name is Jens. I've been in SuperOffice since 2001. First I was a net server, and the last couple of years I've been working with the online environment. So I'll try to give you a little walkthrough about how we have made the online environment and the principles we have applied, and then I'm going to try to pick it up later, actually how to perform the provisioning, and look at what that looks like from the operations point of view. So you can kind of try to see it from a different angle. Even that's showing what it looks like from the salesperson's point of view up to now. So let's look at some architecture. So we see that the online environment and the products, that is what we call online. Sometimes people refer to the environment as OC. That's because that's the application that people use when they access the environment, the window into the environment. But OC is only a small fraction of it. We have the login page, federated authentication, or Super ID as it's being called. That's going to be a bigger and bigger part over the next couple of years. You'll see that most of the partner and customer-facing applications hosted centrally at SuperOffice will authenticate through Super ID. So you will only have one username and password. We have the App Store. Catherine is responsible for what it looks like from a market point of view. I'm responsible for the technical parts working, the tokens, signing on, security, and stuff like that. On-site online migration has been quite a big hit, taking an on-site database, moving into online. We have automated that. We mentioned the operation center. We're going to peek inside. Provisioning is one of the tasks we have automated. And we have a big background processor. And we have these different building blocks we have used to make this database, Windows service, web service, and of course lots of small applications. We use MVC and Entity Framework for everything. So we haven't used any SuperOffice components to build it. So before we dig into online, let's compare it to what it looks on site. Typically, you have the sales and marketing and web client and a server running inside the same process. Some customers, especially on the continent, is separating into two parts so they can sell it as a 3-layer application. And then we have the customer service. Customer service can both go directly to the database or through net server. Some people choose to connect to the sales and marketing web client, and that's net server instead of using a separate net server. When you have Pocket, they are exposing the endpoints to the internet anyway, and that's an argument for using the same net server. If you're on site, some people have like 3 or 4 net servers, other people just have one. It's your choice, depending on how much you want to upgrade. So let's compare this to what it looks like online. So the idea of making cloud is all about economics of scale. We have to make sure that having customer n+1 is less than having the previous customer or the first customer. So you have to try to reduce cost, reduce footprint of a customer in the online environment. Disk is one of those resources, and that's where we have done most to reduce the footprint. There are many reasons for doing that. You have better performance if you have less files because you have better caching on underlying sound and stuff like that. So what we do is that we have per web server, we only have one instance of the files needed to run a customer. That means configuration is not part of that. That's separated out in a separate configuration service. We have a application authentication service helping us with integrations to make sure that it's only the code that's allowed to call us. And we have this federated login that's accessing. in order to log in. So, federation, is that something you all know about? There is this guy from Microsoft in a group called Patterns and Practices. They have actually a one-day shop in Oslo next week. I think it's still possible to enroll. They are working on correcting patterns for how to use Microsoft technologies. It's usually guys that have previously been inside their product groups, now are in this pattern and practices group, and try to teach everybody how do you best use Microsoft products and how do you make things in general. A couple of years ago, they published a book and website for cloud patterns. Like, what are the principles you should apply when you are creating your own cloud? And we have taken that to our heart and tried to reuse quite a few of their patterns. And I'm going to present 4 of the patterns here today based on those cloud patterns. So the first part is federation. And the idea is to separate authentication principles from the application code by itself. And you do that, and the motivation for doing that is that you want to have several ways of authentication. Right now in online we have the username and password, where the password is stored in the customer database. We have Office 365 and we have Google. Some of the apps doesn't really rely on the customer database and it's only for employees, and they use Azure Active Directory, which is our on-site Active Directory mirrored to the cloud. We will in the future get improved support for the customer's identity providers. That means the customer shouldn't have a separate username for online as it has for its other on-site products, right? If you want that two-phase authentication, you do that with your on-site identity provider, making sure you have two-phase authentication. That could of course be your Google or your Office 365 or whatever. Okay, so you separate that. But how do you do trust? The idea is that you have one party that's responsible for authentication. They do the authentication and they sign that, right? The party that is relying on the identity provider is validating that signature, and you trust that party having performed this authentication. So inside the online environment, all the tenants, they trust the login page in online. The login page in online trusts other sources, but it's actually re-signing and passing on to the client. So you have one party trusting and one party actually issuing the identity. Authorization is inside the client still, because that's where you deal with licenses and user levels and functional rights and stuff like that. That was the first pattern. The second pattern I briefly touched upon, and that is what's called external configuration store pattern. So the first version online, we had actually one installation per customer. So from the outside it looked like one thing, from inside it was just hundreds of installations. And you can imagine that doesn't scale, right? Imagine having configuration for each customer in separate web config files. And if you have installed SuperOffice, you know it's not only one config file, right? It's several config files. You have for CS and you have for web and you have for lots of things. So you wanted to extract that out and put that into a separate database. We call this the user master database. It was called that. It actually started off as a CRM database. We used to find tables and fields, but we found that would be too costly to maintain, because we never used the SuperOffice client in order to maintain that configuration. So we have dropped all that, and we're now using purely Entity Framework and MVC. And the latest version of OC uses Angular as well, so it's a single-page application. Okay, so we have this configuration stored in this database. We have this web service. We talk REST or we talk SOAP. And everyone that needs configuration, it comes in with custom numbers, and the configuration is returned back, including connection strings and where it's document archive and stuff like that. So what have we done with NetServer in order to support this? Well, we have created a couple of extension points inside NetServer that you can implement, and we have just implemented specifically for online. It is the Context Resolver plugin and the Context Initializer plugin. The context resolver plugin is responsible for figuring out which customer is it. That's which customer number. It actually just takes it from the URL, extracts the customer number, and we know it's this customer, right? And then we have the customer number, we hand it over to config service and get the configuration back. And that is what the context initializer does. Gets the configuration and sets it in code. And you can set almost all configuration in that server from code itself. Okay, so we have this online environment that doesn't really know about which version the customer is running on. We always have customers running on different versions, especially before and after upgrade. Half of the customers on an old version, the other half is on a new version. Or a customer might have a special integration, resulting in the customer being locked on that version for a period of time until the partner is able to fix it. We don't like that, but it happens from time to time. It's very expensive for us, but have created a solution around supporting that customers might have different versions. New large features, a customer might be on a preview version in order to test a feature out. Okay, so we have separated what we call the file set. That means everything in the product stack talking to the customer database from the environment, and that's talking to the user master database. So net server and the core parts of net server can run multi-tenant. So we're actually running a multi-tenant net server, one instance, or actually 4 instances per version, because we're doing load balancing of traffic, talking to the database, and they all expose the same endpoint. So we could treat a customer database in a generic manner through this file set service being multi-tenant. And it's talked to all the databases. Let's move to the next pattern from the Pathfinder Practices group. It's called Scheduler Agent Supervisor pattern. Okay, so quite often you need to do some sort of background work. If you're from the old sales and marketing world, you know that the only Windows process you actually had running was a travel gateway. We don't want one travel gateway per customer running in online, right? Inside eJournal, you had a separate service executing the eJournal cron jobs. That was a different processor. In an online environment, we need to control executing tasks in the background across all customers in a managed way. So you don't do all customers at the same time, you have to spread them out. That means we have created a new processor for doing stuff in background, and when making that from scratch, it makes sense taking an established pattern of something that seems smart. It consists of these 3 parts. The agent is responsible for carrying out the job. So an agent is typically running a customer task or a customer service task or like a maintenance task. A typical customer task is do free text indexing, do scene generation. A typical customer service task is run eJournal cron or do populate or any of the other eJournal jobs. And we do a lot of monitoring, figuring out if components are up or down, and send emails and stuff like that. So that's just execution. Then we have a scheduler that's responsible for figuring out how often should this job work. Basically looks in the table, puts a job to pending, and it is being processed, picked up by the agents, and being executed. Sometimes a job doesn't work, right? It's been said, well, it started 3 hours ago and it's not finished. Well, then we know it's broken because it's only supposed to take 5 minutes. So the supervisor is responsible for looking at the customer task and saying, well, this one failed, do something else. Try it again later. So these 3 roles makes it easy to create a background processor. So we made it from scratch by reusing the pattern. The last pattern I will show is the compensating transaction pattern, quite similar to what they have done inside the order manager in order to place the order. The idea is that when you create a job, you also create how you undo that job, right? You cannot have like long-running transactions locking down the environment. You have to do a manual undo instead. So that's like an alternative to having long-running transactions. Long-running transactions would just have locked up the environment and wouldn't scale. That's why you need this other approach. So you have a do and you have undo. And when you do, you have storing some state internally, so you know what you have to undo. If you have created something, you delete it. And you do it, and then you undo it in the same direction, the same thing as you did. So we have created that pattern. And provisioning is using that. And it's our way of like general background tasks that are significant. We have also constructed something around it called a wave. And a wave is when you do the same operation for many customers. Upgrading to a new version is something we do in wave. Typically we upgrade a few hundred customers at a time, and they are doing in parallel. So then we have a dashboard where you can actually see how we upgrade many customers. So, inside the environment, this is a spider that Tony didn't show, but it's basically the different background workers we have and different components. We haven't said much about migration this year. I think it was mentioned more last year, but that's been running throughout the year. Fully automated migration on-site to online. The App Store we have mentioned, of course the login page. We talk about the config service. We have some syncing services and other Windows services, and we have this supermarket gateway, which is a public endpoint that the order manager is accessing. Okay. So let me just briefly show you what OC looks like from a operation point of view. So I'll start this in incognito mode. Logging in, and if I write the SuperOffice.com address, it knows that I might be a SuperOffice employee, and I'm offered to log on with SuperOffice Azure Active Directory. I think you can imagine that if you have a customer with its own domain, we could do similar things in the future. So log in, and because I'm going to access something sensitive, I will need some more authentication.
So that's a two-factor.
Yes, because I'm now accessing the environment, we have extra level security, and this is now handled inside Azure Active Directory. So we haven't done anything in order to support two-factor except for going into Azure Active Directory and configuring that we, for this application, needs two-factor authentication, right? So when a customer is handling its own authentication, it can also have two-factor. So then I have the code and app.
You can see that on the URL that you are redirected to Microsoft, and should be redirected back to Operations Center.
Are you hosting the OC on an Azure platform or on your own server?
No, on our own servers inside the environment, but the authentication is happening in Azure. So we are doing the same trust to Azure. They send us back a signed token. We're validating that signature, and that's how we could do the trust. So the login page is trusting Azure, and OC is trusting our login page. So it's like this chain of trust. So now I'm logged into OC, and this is the customer that Øyvind provisioned. And you can see that we have one operation that has been performed on the customer. And we can look at the different steps. So this is actually, we go back here, each of those elements represents one of these elements, right? So we create the user, archive user, we create the SOArch. We start always by restoring a database template, unique per language. We create a custom database. we restore a database template, we create SQL Server login, we create the system user, we change the serial number from a demo serial number to the new serial number for the customer. We do some flushing. There is a default user into each template. We make sure we disable that user. We wait for the SRR to be finished copying, because that's happening in the background. We upgrade the customer to the current version, so it's always on the latest version when we upgrade. The template might be on the older version. We do some priming of customer service. We provision the mail service, the mail gun. We set the customer web configuration in the clusters. We wait for the customer web configurations to be applied. When you're pushing web configurations to many servers, it takes some time for it to be applied. So we have like a background job responsible for applying customer changes on the web servers. So that's why I have to wait for that. Update company info in the customer database and set it to completed. And you see that we have other set of widgets you can perform on a customer to see what happened with it. Like migration or which server is actually running on, where it has a process and stuff like that. This is in test environment. We have 3 environments, so we have this complete stack for all environments.
Yeah, I'm gonna, if we have time, I'm gonna show a few slides about migration and the environments.
Any more questions about online before I hand over to Øyvind?
Okay, let's have a look at not this one. So I did an F5 instead of Shift F5. Okay, these are your slides. Okay, like this. Okay, so the last area I'm going to talk about is migration, also as Jens mentioned. And it's not a very trivial area. The reason for that is that as this diagram shows, migration for 7 to 8 is that represents moving from the old world to the new world. On the left hand side here you can see the existing 7-by pricing price lists where we have our existing customers, and on the right hand side, we have the new subscription based price lists, and in between we have implemented a set of rules because you need a completely new installation when moving from 6 or 7 to 8. So this is handled by SuperLicense, and we have created a tool called Migration Calculator, which I can show you. I think I'm just going to this screen. This is the migration calculator. It's not something we are showing our customers. This is an example where we have a current existing 7.5 customers. You can see the licensing they have, and when we're running through a set of rules, these 7 licenses are converted into these 8 licenses and user plans. And the table on the top is about how much we earn on this customer, etc. So if this customer, for example, wants to migrate from their 7.5 on-site to online, the salesperson in SuperOffice then would maybe give some discount and then click migrate to online subscription. And then what happens is that from the migration calculator tells Order Manager to create a new sale for this new 8 installation that represents the customer's new installation in the cloud. And when you're placing that order in Superquote, lots of the same steps happened, but also a lot of things happens in the online environment. So I'm quickly going to go through here. The online environment prepares the migration, and it tells our SuperOffice service that it has done so through the SOAP API. It then sends what we call OMT, Online Migration Tool. Do you know this? Online Migration Tool. That's a specific tool we have built that uploads the customer's on-site database and SOARC up to us for migration to the cloud. And when the customer interacts with the OMT, we are being notified. When the customer has uploaded its database to our online environment, the online environment is notified, of course, and our service, customer service, is also notified. We have a for this entire process, we insert a ticket to the customer, and a specific message is added to the ticket for each thing that happens in this process. And after the database and archive is uploaded, the new site is provisioned. Login links are sent to the user. The customer is notified that everything is complete successfully. And finally, a license certificate is being issued. So let's have a look at the CRM scripts we used in this specific example about the migration. This is a screenshot from Visual Studio. We work, at least my team, work with CRM scripts in Visual Studio. The reason for that, well, it's maybe a bit fewer reasons now after the awesome update to the CRM editor, but the main reason is that we store everything in TFS, so it's source control. That's why we work with it here. And in our customer service installation, the online migration scripts look like this, and I can show you one of those in the new editor. And as you can see here, it's pretty easy to tell what they are doing. We are using lots of includes to reuse. That of course may be a challenge. Do you work with CRM scripts? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I kind of try to reuse some of the practices from our .NET development. Of course, it's not the same, but writing nice short functions that with good names that you can easily tell what they do. Try to reuse those practices. When it comes to 8-by upgrade, it's a bit different, of course, but because it's not a migration to the cloud, it's not an upgrade. But still, that's not something the customer can do on its own, even if he gets hold of the 8 installation medium. The SuperOffice upgrade must be registered in the migration calculator in order to be able to finish. So on the customer side, DB setup will communicate with the SuperLicense service. It's not the DB setup that communicates.
Yeah.
And it checks if the 8-by grade migration record is registered at SuperOffice. And when the customer installation is upgraded from 7 to 8, SuperLicense will will provide the current correct translation to the new user plans. Okay. So hopefully you have a better insight now into how all of this looks. So let's pretend all of this is our internal systems and environment. And as Jens talked a bit about, we have multiple environments. We have 3 environments. We have what we call SUD, as you may know. That's our testing environment. We have stage, that is the final testing environment before a release is set into production. And we use a third-party system called Octopus Deploy for this, that automatically deploys all of these systems in all of these environments. That's also something you can use. And the administration UI or the operations UI for Octopus looks like this. This is a screenshot from our Octopus installation. And as you can see here in this table, we have releases, and you can see where those releases are deployed in what environment. And we can promote different releases through the different environments. We work in SUD most of the time, and it's our, at least for the internal systems, it's our IT department that promotes the release to stage and then production. That is their responsibility. Going on? No? Not going on? Okay. This is another screen from Octopus showing all of the Octopus projects that is being deployed. And for the internal systems, it's a separate project, and if we go into that, we can see all of the different steps representing all of the different system that is deployed. Here you can see order manager, migration calculator, and lots of other systems we don't have mentioned. Okay. So working with all of this in internal systems involves working with all parts and all corners of SuperOffice. We work with subsidiaries, we work with the product teams and support, and every department and almost every stakeholder in SuperOffice. So that brings me back to a kind of complete overview, well, of these systems I have mentioned today, without exploring this online environment any further. And that's what we had. Do you have any questions? I see that we have 1 minute left. So that's one question. No.
Let's take 1 minute for a little.
Yes. Yeah, we started 10 minutes late. I was planning 60 minutes, but kind of used an hour, I think. Yeah. So we have created lots of internal systems to automate all of our processes in SuperOffice, and we have used our APIs and extension points. In quite a few areas, we have had to create custom APIs and custom systems because SuperOffice can't. It's a CRM system. It can't do everything we need to automate. But SuperOffice, of course, is about automation itself. So we have used that as far as possible. So is things a bit clearer on how we have automated our processes inside SuperOffice? That's good. Lots of boxes. It's good. Yeah.
One question: is it always a manual step in the beginning when people, or can people pay with a credit card and then the system can pick it up, or is it an email that?
Think about the payment, or when you purchase the system.
Yeah, if I go to superoffice.com and I want it online right now.
Yeah. No, we don't have that self-service
Okay.
yet. We do not have that. I think it's not. It wouldn't be too hard to do something like that, but it's also a political decision. It's also same thing about free trial, which I haven't mentioned here. If you go to superoffice.com and request a free trial, one of our salesperson will contact you, and then they will start a free trial by clicking just some buttons. We could easily automate that. Maybe we want to do that in the future, but it's a political decision. Yeah. So it's as the title said, it's almost everything is automated, but we are still, of course, working on lots of it. Yeah. So maybe we will get there, of course. It's a good question, because I know if I Friday evening want to just try something or buy something, of course you don't want to pick up a phone. So, but it's of course a bit different to buy a CRM system than any simple product. So yeah, we are getting there. Okay. Any other questions before we stop? No? Everything clear? So, okay, so if I do a Kahoot and I say, what's the fourth step in Order Manager? And the three previous, you can answer that.
Thank you.